Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Raad Life. The one positive thing that I have experienced during this coronavirus crisis with having to slow down and have the time to actually kind of just read and engage in things is it's given me an opportunity to meet some new people, make, forge new friendships and connections that are really meaningful. And it's interesting because I think part of it has been because there hasn't been like sort of this glossy uh, pretense component to it. So one of the gentlemen that I actually asked to be on the show, and he graciously accepted, a gentleman by the name of Ian Jones, and he's from BGI Group in Canada, and they are real estate developers in Canada. They've been in the industry for a long time. They used to build as well as develop. Now they just develop and then they contract out. But what I liked about Ian's approach, and it was a happenstance reaction to a comment or some posting on LinkedIn that allowed me to get him sort of on my radar, is that we speak the same language when it comes to how things are progressing in multiple industries out there, hospitality, senior housing, just people getting older, multi-unit developments. And I wanted to bring him on to share with everybody what's been going on with them and what he perceives as the next wave coming as from his perspective. So without further ado, allow me to get him out of the waiting room here. Let's see if Ian can join us. Ian, are you there?
Yeah, you're.
I said that when I had you waiting in the waiting room, I said that one of the things that I feel like was a blessing from this coronavirus period is it allowed me to slow down enough to engage with people that I may know, or maybe 2 degrees of separation from me or something in a different manner, on a deeper level. It allowed me to basically meet people like yourself and realize that I do have kindred spirits out there in some of the things that we have been doing and the things I've been talking about. I have not been screaming in the wilderness. There's other people out there that speak the same language. And so thank you first and foremost for being on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that.
More than welcome. That's where LinkedIn is good, isn't it?
Yeah. When there is good in the internet and there is craziness in the internet, and on occasion, we come up with some golden moments. So I mentioned BGI Group, and that you guys have been in the field of real estate development for quite a while. So if you wouldn't mind, Ian, take a minute and just give people a background on your background, a little bit about BGI, and then we will get to the exciting part that I really want to talk
about. Thanks, Raad, very much for having me here. Okay, came over from Scotland, Glasgow, Scotland in 1960. Had a couple of brothers here initially, and
where are you, Ian? I mentioned Canada, but I didn't say Toronto. Okay,
Toronto.
Yeah.
Went to school for 3 years in Toronto as far as grade 12, and then bailed out because I had to support my mother. And I started work for a general contractor in the fall of '63. I was building Toronto subways and raised expressways and that. So they agreed to pay for estimating courses, etc., as long as I stayed with them for a year. But did that. I jumped at that and I joined the Chartered Quantity Surveyors, and you had to pass 21 subjects. So I went to local college, 2 of them, 4 years, 4 nights a week, to pass the 21 subjects that are needed. And what the Chartered Quantity Surveyors do, they design the economics of large-scale projects from concept to completion. So it's basically, a developer in waiting.
Right.
But I spent 4 years working for a big general contractor, one that built the CN Tower in Toronto, and architect that built the big hospitals in Toronto, and a couple of 5-star hotels. So 15 years of that. I guess I woke up one morning and figured everything I'd done for that 15 years is what a developer does. So that's when I formed a development company and been developing ever since. And it's just about every type of asset class, condos, retail, office, university buildings, all of that type of thing. And it was the construction as well as the development. We did our own construction for from 1980 right up to about 5 years ago. And 1995, I'm in the leading edge of the boomers, as you can tell. So in 1995, I knew that this market was coming. So we conceived a large-scale adult lifestyle community in a Toronto suburb. And that's what you see in the picture of our website. That's a total of 10 buildings, and they were condominium adult lifestyle, plus 160 bed. We call them long-term care homes, nursing homes there.
I'm just gonna put up the website too for those who are following us. That's a shot of the building that Ian is talking about, and here's the website. It's bgigroup.ca. Go ahead, Ian. Sorry, I just want to make sure people are able to follow us. Yeah.
That project on the picture, that's the 700 condominiums comprising a total adult lifestyle community in as I say, a Toronto suburb. And we designed it in such a way that we could sell the units, which were the size of a small house, 1,250 square feet at that time, before they started really shrinking.
That's a good size.
We were selling them locally to couples who could sell their house, buy ours, be mortgage free, and have 50,000 in their pocket. And we sold out the first phase of 200 before we put a shovel in the ground.
Wow.
The project is now complete. But the point being is that, as far back as 95, my mind was on this whole boomer generation, etc. And that brings us right up to, a couple of years ago. So if you like, I'll take a breath if you have another sort of question before
I actually do. And it's funny because you're more seasoned than I am. I'll put it that way.
Thank you.
We do have probably some qualities that are similar, right? Yeah, I do like it. So congrats. Actually yours looks better than mine. But the reason why I'm saying there's some parallels is I remember being in design school, and for me, design school was almost like a third degree. I did an undergrad in economics, I did a master's in marketing, and then I was very young when I came to the United States. Finished my master's at the age of 20. I tried to get into the sort of the sales side of things on the retail, like iMagnums or Bullocks or whatever it was, and I realized that everybody around me had more sales experience than I did because they've been selling since they had a bicycle route. And coming from overseas, I had nothing. So I ended up going and working for a friend of my dad's, and then the economy crashed in '91. Ended up basically at home with my mom. I love her to death, but I needed a little bit of space, so I ended up going to do another undergraduate degree in interior design. And I remember it was about 91, maybe 92, being fascinated by this thing called universal design, and never looked at it as a minimum compliancy situation. It always like, ADA is, I used to say on my old website that, our work begins where ADA compliancy ends. Like that, there's so much opportunity to service that market, whether it be because of physical limitations or age limitations or changing needs as you get older. And so I have to tell you, my friend, if in 95 you basically focused on this and you were doing this in Canada, that was very, very, what do they call those people? Early adapters, visionaries. Yes, no, yeah, you can call yourself that. Absolutely, I'll call you that. The question I have for you on this building is, what did, back then, because that's very impressive to sell that many units before you have put a shovel in the ground. What was the appeal? What do you think the appeal was for those people who are selling those single-family homes and looking to move into something like this?
Well, again, the generation I was aiming at, and I had a pretty hefty budget. It was about $800,000 as a marketing budget for the first phase. After that, it more or less sold itself. But but basically, the whole thing got right back to not only the design of the buildings and some people would say it could be better than they look, but what they were was functional. They were priced right. They had the space of a lot of the old 50s bungalows that these people were coming out of, etc. And by that time, most of them mortgage free. So the whole thing was it was a formula, of
Yeah.
and our byline, frankly, is BGI seeks to achieve a perfect balance of aesthetics, economy, and market appeal. And we tacked on with a deep regard.
No. And the reason I asked the question, Ian, is because I'm trying to set a benchmark that this is 1995. This is the type of property that we're basically putting on the market. This is the appeal of it. And the reason why I'm doing that is because as we progress through the years here, the profile of end user has changed. The profile of people that are concerned about everything from whether my 401k basically survived the last economic downturn to am I now a sandwich generation? Do I have a multi-generational household? Am I taking care of somebody like a surviving parent as well as having kids on the other side? That all these realities started becoming more and more amplified in the last, say, 10 years. And I had the hardest time. I got certified aging in place in 2008. I had to go to Chicago in order to be able to get my classes in any kind of timely manner to be able to get my certification. Because in the state of California, I would have had to wait multiple months and pick this class from here and this class from there in order to get that. It was not anywhere on the radar screen. Nobody wanted to talk about getting older. We don't have change of seasons around here. You guys have change of seasons in Toronto. You put salt on driveways. You take out winter clothes. You put summer clothes. Nobody ages in California. And so this conversation, and it's always been fascinating to me, like the East Coast, Midwest, other places that are maybe larger family, like multi generations within the same family support system. They seem to have adapted to this idea sooner. Here, we are late adapters. And so it's wonderful to be able to talk to you, to see somebody who's been involved in this since 95, how you have seen this change.
Yeah, well, it gets right down to just the human element, of course. And at that time, obviously, in 1995, people were today's seniors, but they had the same needs and wants and affinities that they wanted back then, and that was living with similar ages, similar interests, etc. But again, with an overriding, how much is this going to cost me, and what am I going to get out of it?
Sure.
So it was conveying value as well as anything else, and I don't mean dollar value.
No, quality of life value, really,
exactly,
right? Yeah.
Exactly. And it had the 160 bed long-term care on the same site. So if one spouse did become ill, it was just a 3-minute walk, to visit them in the long-term care.
They wouldn't have to be separated. They're still within proximity of one another.
Right.
Yeah.
But the units themselves were big enough. They had, again, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and a den. So even to bring in a companion, a living personal care worker, and that,
Yeah.
they had all that kind of flexibility. So and those units have more than doubled in value, way more than doubled in value, and that's been part of the problem. Because today, like people just can't afford what's out there, and
Right.
I'm more or less transitioning a little, and we maybe should cover it separately. But the 4,000 to 5,000 a month stuff these days, or to be 2 or 10 years on a waiting list for affordable apartments, those are the two areas that today's seniors and aging boomers have.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing in between. Somebody in the US gave it the name. I think it was NIC, the Forgotten Middle. And that's exactly what there's millions of them. So from a development point of view, that's what we are going to be aiming at.
So tell me more about that, because again, what you did in 95, Ian, basically we saw happen here maybe in 2005. I mean, I got to tell you, and I there's a particular project next to me, or within about 30 miles maybe, that used to be an old I think it was a church, to be honest. I don't know that it was a monastery, but it was a church. It happened to be in a residential area. So the zoning allowed it to actually be developed into something other than residential. And that's what they did. They did multi levels of care. You had everything from independent living to hospice, basically, within this compound. It wasn't all one building. They had a hospitality layer to it, they had a the self-playing piano and some lockers in the bar area. There was the approach to the dining hall was not your name on a laminated table mat. It was a hostess station that basically said hello, how many in your party, Mr. Jones? Would you like the window seat this evening? Or it was a little bit more of that hospitality layering to it. Their craft classes and things of that nature were done in a little bit more of almost like I would call it a city plaza feel, like multiple storefront kind of vibes. But it was a quality of life, and that is unfortunately, I got to tell you, around here, I thought within, what was that, almost 15 years ago, 16 years ago, I thought I was going to see this on every corner. I thought this was going to be the model that everybody was going to basically follow. Well, yes, of course. But I also know from being in the hospitality field that nobody ever gave me $200 a square foot to put in a Ritz-Carlton. I mean, for finishes. So there are smart ways. You know this. You're smiling. You're grinning from ear to ear. There's creative, smart ways of doing something, and there's expensive ways of doing something. But I even on a lesser degree of implementation, I thought some of these things were going to be more part and parcel of what gets developed. And I got to tell you, unfortunately, I have not seen it happen in our area. So yes, you're right. I mean, this is probably a big reason why. But I've also seen, for the last, 45 days, 60 days, I've seen hotels at 80% non-capacity. Okay, I've seen hotels feel creative and smart for selling their rooms by the hour for people to get out of their house and go work there, and then sanitize them and sell them again. So I am hopeful that maybe we are in a period right now that we're more susceptible or receptive to doing things differently. So I've set you up. So how are we going to do things differently?
Okay, well, it would be what I'm going to be talking about, and now it's almost as if I could have thought it up 3 weeks ago after COVID arrived, and basically, hey, we got to do something different here, because nothing's working, and it's not going to be working for at least the near future, 1 to 2 years climbing back out of this. So, but thankfully, that 1995 project, that basically sowed the seeds, and it was an aging in place, but it didn't have services. It had third-party services, if you want them, and use your rotary dial phone at that time or whatever it was, So basically, but it sowed the seeds of what the boomer generation, would probably want, and that's where I draw a definite line between, as I said, today's seniors. God bless them. They've been through the mill. A lot of them were in the 40s. The war to a lesser extent. But basically with that boomer mentality, the boomer mentality basically came to its own in the 60s. And I was 15 in 1960 and I was 25 in 1970. I saw the Beatles live, for goodness sake. The last thing I want to be doing is sitting in an institutional type dining room, right, getting lunch at 12, dinner at 5. And if it's Tuesday, it must be salmon we're having today. Boomers.
I mean, you get to look forward to that every week.
Boomers don't want to know about that. Some of them are even running marathons. It's not me, but marathons and living longer, healthier lives, etc. So, when you combine that current lifestyle, and it's not all, I'm generalizing, obviously, but when you combine that with what's out there right now, which is the 2 to 10 year waiting list. I think it's even longer than that in DC, but and on the other side of the scale, you get the 46,000 a month, and there's nothing in between, so just from a development point of view, you know, and the natural, that is something that's like a developer's dream. But you have to do it and do it correctly. So we, you know, we'll draw the curtain back a bit, you know, and what we're basically doing is an apartment building with enhanced management, you know, feeling like a hotel.
Yeah.
You know, not with the staff of a hotel, not with the food and beverage. These are individual units, you know, the Golden Girls type of thing.
Yeah.
And by doing all of that, you know, we can come in at 1,300 a month. You know, so that's just going to be the giant attraction. So just like the project in the 90s, you just take the model, make it as best you can for the least amount of money that you can as a developer, but still comes off, you know, like a really good quality building.
Yeah.
Ours won't be that much different from the retirement homes that you see today, but it won't have nurses and PSWs and doctors walking the halls, etc. As a matter of fact, now that telehealth is taking, you know, a front line.
Especially with the last couple of weeks.
So
I mean, yeah.
So that's what we're doing now. You know, like thankfully we're not into the ground yet, and we don't have unforgivable concrete in place. So we're taking a look at all of these things and webinars and all the rest of it, and making these as pandemic proof as we can.
Well, again, it's really a pleasure to talk to you about this because literally I've been kind of consumed with this and I tend to extrapolate. So when you see something and you start applying it to this, like for example, you're talking about the baby boomers. Now, again, I'm a baby boomer wannabe. I missed it by 1 year. So I'm a little bit flippant when I refer to baby boomers sometimes.
You're a young guy.
But with all the respect in the world, okay, I really do. But when somebody asked me, well, what's the difference? I said, well, baby boomers pretty much shaped every marketing trend known to man since they've been around. They are also very much opinionated and very strong personalities, one degree or the other. Look, he's shaking his head, right? And well, you're even before you are a less diluted version of a baby boomer, right? So, but I used to say that baby boomers, here's a baby boomer. I want it all. I want it now. Why don't I have it already? Now, that was all great until the last economic hit that they took, because a lot of them didn't think that they were going to live as long as they'd lived. All of a sudden, I'm living longer than I thought I was going to live. Did I put enough money aside in order to last the life that I expected? No, I did not, right? And now whatever money I actually was smart enough to put aside just took a major hit in the economy because of the downturn in the economy. And now my 401k is not worth as much. Now I'm looking at my age, which I thought I was never going to, work another day in my life. I'm looking at the need to work maybe, or the desire to work to find a sense of purpose and sense of achievement and sense of, like being able to accomplish things. Like how much golf can I play? How much looking forward to that salmon on Thursdays can I do, right? I mean, it's just not satisfactory. And I got to tell you, I've seen it because when I started doing this show, the guy who owns the radio station is a bona fide baby boomer. And I use him shamelessly as opposed to chart photo generation, right? And I saw him go from being almost like he was very imaginative in reinventing himself after the economic downturn by setting up the radio station and doing what he did when he was in college in the University of Michigan by running a radio station. He was now doing a podcast station basically and enjoying himself like he was in college. It turned out making more money than he did when he was repping products and companies. And yet there was a little bit of a hit that his spirit as a baby boomer had taken. And what I saw happen more recently is a baby boomer who basically has regained his spirit as a baby boomer, his fighting spirit as a baby boomer, because he got pissed off, because he got angry, he got upset that there isn't stuff, there should be stuff, and I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. Okay, and I looked at that and I said, good for you. Here's the baby boomer spirit. Now, how is that going to manifest itself? And to your point, the $5,000 a month, that's not a possibility anymore. But I still want the quality of life that I think I deserve. I still want the support there. I don't want to see nurses and doctors. I want to do it on my own terms, but if you do telemedicine, I'm listening. I don't want to go to a senior center, but I'll go to a wellness center. Right?
Well, let me tell you the catalyst that really has brought us into the foreground, just to sort of, I don't know if I can complete the story. I came up personally, I like to skate. I'm probably a frustrated architect, but I like to think I know better than an architect what the market's looking for. So
Yeah.
we basically, sketch out what it is we want to build, and we know how much it's going to cost, and blah, blah, blah. So all of those goodies, we then retain a local architect because we need them for the construction use drawings, etc.
Sure.
So basically, and we just say, hi, here, take this, make it better, or do what I'm giving you. So basically, I did the original sketches for what we're going to do in 2014. But other things got in the way, and I just put it on the side burner. But about 3 years ago, my brother, who I love dearly and worked with me for 40 years, he had a quadruple bypass, and he was stuck in a hospital for 9 months. And his wife and doctor, decided, although his mind was as clear as a bell, that he should go into a retirement home. He was stuck in that hospital for 9 months waiting for a bed, and I wasn't really looking that closely, but he lasted, when he got a bed, he lasted in the home for 12 months, and then he passed away.
Oh, sorry.
And it was the home didn't help. They kept feeding him medication. I'm not a doctor, I'm not going to comment, but I mean, I just noticed the decline. And every week when I visited him, when I walked in that door, there was about 30 seniors on each side, all sitting in chairs or wheelchairs looking at the floor. And when I left an hour later, the same seniors were looking at the same floor.
Yeah.
The day that he died, when I left that place, I said, someone, I'm going to do something about this, and that was the catalyst, epiphany, that basically brought that concept of 214 back, heavily onto my table. And I decided I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to do condos, none of that. I said, this thing I want to see in the market, not just from a development point of view, which there's a multi-million market there for the right product, but I don't want these buildings. I don't need them. I don't want them. So what I'm going to be doing is we source the site, we get it approved, we build it, we fill it, we stabilize it, overview it for a year, and then we turn it over to a local charity or non-profit, and they own it 100% from that point on. But they will get all of that revenue and build up in equity, forever. Because all the charities and non-profits today are starving because the donations have fallen off the cliff.
Absolutely.
This is an answer to that, and an answer to the boomer stuff.
So Ian, I'll share with you this. I've had a lot of people on the show over the last 5 years, and I will tell you the one common thread between anybody who's involved in the senior industry and what they do, and especially they're very passionate about it, which I would say 99.9% of the people that are involved in the senior industry are very passionate about their calling. It really comes down to a personal catalyst, a personal story. So I my condolences for the loss of your brother, but this is very much the sort of the calling that happens. And I been doing this for 5 years. I didn't really have to deal with this very much with my parents until this last year with, chronic medical conditions. My father has dementia, this being sort of isolated away from them because we've been trying to make sure that their health is not in jeopardy by being exposed to their grandkids, to myself, my sister, her family. They're close enough. They're 6 miles away, but I have not really seen them very much of them in the last couple. And when I see them, I can see the impact of isolation and deterioration. And they're living in a beautiful house and all this stuff. So there's a lot of layers to this in terms of quality of life. And best intended housing facilities or bed, like where your brother spent the last year of his life. All the best intentions in the world are not taking some of this stuff into consideration. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity right now for people like you and I to see the amalgamations or the merging of certain disciplines all under one roof, to be able to provide that kind of quality of life for people. And at a price point that actually makes sense, is not, that is manageable, that's doable. And then this added layer that you have brought in, where these now become assets, and sort of sustainability engines for nonprofits that you are absolutely correct are suffering a lot in the last few years from fundraising and funding. That's a very noble mission. So you could almost call it a quest if you're into that kind of stuff, like I am historically. But yes, it's a very noble calling, and so I commend you highly. How far have you gotten with this so far? I mean, is it something that's relatively new? Are you well underway? Where are you at with it?
We've got 4 designs that are done and ready, so we're sourcing the sites that can accommodate those. We figure that any community of 20,000 population and up, whether it's Canada or the US, will support at least one of these buildings.
Sure.
And because the demographics are 20%, of that population. And by the way, on that Brampton one, the 95, 4,000 people came through the centre for the 200 units. We didn't mind at all that 3,800 didn't buy. 200 did, and it get built. The same applies here.
Yeah.
What we're talking about isn't for everybody, but it will be, for sure, for enough that I'll get these things built.
I always remind my real estate friends that basically are wanting to blanket as many people as possible. That all it takes is one person to buy.
Right. So basically, and so much so, we believe in it so much so, is we copyrighted the entire concept, not just the design.
Smart.
The entire concept in 2018 in Canada and the US. And just another piece of trivia, both of those are signatories to the Berne Convention Treaty, which covers it in 150 countries. We're not under any illusion that we can, anywhere meet this demand that we know is coming up. Yeah. But we'll license it to other developer builders who have got a similar, social conscience mindset.
So, Ian, let's delve a little bit deeper on the concept, whatever you're at liberty of sharing. But we talked about the fact that it's a multi-unit in principle, right? That it has sort of some basic hospitality flavor to it, maybe, and that it is geared towards the full-on baby boomer, basically. The profile user, if you will, or buyer, is a baby boomer. What are some of the things, other than the fact that this would be something that would get handed over or donated, if you will, to a nonprofit later as an asset? What are some of the things that you're excited about that are part of this matrix that you're offering?
Okay, we've restricted, incidentally, whether it's seniors or boomers, they don't like buildings.
Either label, too.
Right. They don't like buildings above 6 floors, because that's beyond what the fire escape, the fireman's ladder will reach. So, that's just a sort of a humorous side, although it's not. So our model is 3 to 6 story. They're about 60 to 100,000 square feet. They'll accommodate about 100 to 300 residents. Mm-hmm. We're doing them on a 10-year occupancy agreement. We're not doing them on a month-to-month or 1 or 2 year lease.
Sure.
We're doing them in 10-year with a 30-day cancellation. So it gives the resident the security of tenure, but they can check out early. Is that right? So basically, on all of that legal side and everything, we're trying to make that and check all the boxes there. So in each building, it would have a culinary kitchen on the ground floor. We've deleted suites on the ground floor.
Okay.
A culinary kitchen, and we'll just have to look at that with spacing and everything. And separately, a learning lab, for entrepreneurial mindsets, that the boomers have.
Brilliant.
There's also there's a director, somebody on social, and a lot of that will be online. But the main thing is there'll be 3 concierges, each on an 8-hour basis. So there'll be somebody in the building all the time, and whether they want a doctor call or whatever, If they don't feel comfortable doing it through telehealth, then it's just calling down to the concierge who'll do it. So the interiors of the building are going to be similar to your mid-range hotel, nowhere near luxury.
Yeah,
I call them adequate, finishes. And these will be furnished, by the way, and we're furnishing them retro to the 60s. And when people come out of their hallways, they're going to hear, music that they in the background that they all know.
yeah.
So it's that whole experience, because it's to basically instill them with joy. And
Well, I think also the height that you're going for 3-story or 5-story, it makes that a applicable model in a lot more areas, a lot more literal geographical areas, like, whether it's an urban situation or it's a suburban situation or it's a destination location. I mean, it opens up, especially at a 3-story level, it opens up a lot of possibility, versus like try to do a multi-story, 10 stories or higher. That's, start hitting restrictions and guidelines and all this stuff, especially in the case of this product and the market that it's looking to serve. A lot of people are going to want to have sort of a desirable destination to a certain extent. They don't want to be shoved over to an area which is basically commercial zoning only or something of that nature, ideally, right? So it's actually a very smart calibration in terms of scale and size. I really love the idea of the sort of the entrepreneur incubator, because I think that is super smart. On 2 levels at least. One, that the person who is of a certain age may want another encore career or want to pursue another something as a passion pursuit. It also allows you to basically channel all that skill set that is built into your tenants in terms of expertise, almost like, ex CEOs and people that have all that brain wealth that can be shared, and it allows actually for that building to cross over into multiple generations. You could literally have that coaching where it's channeling the talent of the people that are residing there that are maybe of a baby boomer age, and it could actually provide that as a marketable tool, sellable tool, training tool to other people in the community, which makes that building now even more vested in the community's success beyond the people that just live there. They become an integral part of the community.
What you're describing is it's fine for visitations, because if these are freestanding, they're on 1 to 2 acres. If it's larger than that, like a 2 to 10 acre, we'll still do it. But there might only be one of these buildings, and the rest of them will be adult bungalows, that type of thing. That 1995 project, 24 bungalows, is part of it. It's for a wider range of product, so that's the type of thing. And we've even got plans for intergenerational, but you don't mix them in the same building. And I'll give you just a lot.
Oh, not in terms of residential. I was just thinking because, I mean, I keep running parallels between baby boomers and actually, because I used to teach Gen Z and millennial. And believe you me, when I walked into a classroom and I thought everybody in there was a millennial, and it turned out that they were all Gen Zers, I felt very old very quickly, right? But there are certain characteristics between millennials and baby boomers that are the same in terms of social consciousness, in terms of engagement and involvement, in terms of commitment to causes. It manifests itself differently, whereas maybe with the boomer generation, it was more of an in-person exercise, whereas in the millennial generation, it's a little more of an electronic situation. But it's always fascinated me, the idea of actually bringing millennials and boomers together. So forget the Gen Xers that I am, right? That bridge generation. But I see so much parallels that there's a part of me that always wonders, like, is there a wealth of knowledge that is transferable between grandparent generation and grandkid generation that actually is such value that we are not really encouraging or amplifying that?
Yeah, it's untapped.
I mean, it's right there. It's right there, right? I mean, if nothing else, grandkids and grandparents have a better relationship usually than parents and kids. So, skip that middle ground. But I mean, I because I've had them on my show. I've had millennials on the show that that are entrepreneurial, that are uh, the furthest thing from sort of that lazy label they get of being sort of non-committed and lazy, whatever. They are committed. They are imaginative. They are, go-getters. They're willing to dig their heels and stand their grounds and fight for something they believe in. It reminds me very much of at least the nostalgic packaging that baby boomers got.
Mm, mm, mm.
So, but I'm thrilled. So, where are you thinking that this project that first one will be? Will it be in your neck of the woods, basically?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We're negotiating on 3 sites right now, just outside Toronto. We're not touching inside the GT Greater Toronto right now because the
Yeah.
prices were just nuts, and they still are until this COVID reality sets in. So the satellite cities outside of Toronto is where we're concentrating because land value, like an acre of land in Toronto for what I've described would probably be 4 million. Outside Toronto, it'd be 1.5.
Wow, that's a big difference.
So this is all obviously has to factor into our pro formas because I want to make sure that we maintain a going in rate at 1,300 a month.
Yeah.
And there will be a range, by the way. There's one bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and 4 bedroom.
Oh.
And the 3 and 4 obviously is for, the sharing, and that'll be part of the market, so basically Southern Ontario first, but we were up until a couple of months ago and negotiating seriously for a good parcel on the Detroit River, at Detroit, because Detroit was coming back really well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of opportunities for those who are willing to grab it right now.
But unfortunately, it's one of the hot spots right now. So that's just on very much in the side burner. I love Dallas. I've been there like 26 times between 204 and 207. There's some stuff going there. So, that's anywhere in the Eastern Seaboard. And we've got the feelers out already for the right kind of sites. We won't touch a rezoning because of the extra time. It's zoned for multifamily and we can use it.
I mentioned to you the project that I was working on. I don't want to really mention it on the air here because we're under an NDA, but I will share with you the area. That might be something you may want to look at, interestingly enough, because I think you're right. I mean, it's all a matter of timing when it comes to your business, as far as purchasing or acquisition. And yeah, Detroit maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when it was still sort of a little bit under the radar screen. But yes, it's a hot place. I mean, Atlanta. I remember Atlanta in '98, right after the Olympics. There was a window there, and then it just exploded. But I mean, I'm glad to hear that you guys are looking at opportunities in the United States to do this as well, because I think definitely the market could use it big time.
Well, this falls under the category of non-profit housing, which HUD still wants. They've got the programs for it. So, and we bring 100% of the financing to the table, whether it's, a HUD loan of 75%, we bring the other 25%. And we just make room for, about $500,000 of third-party equity if somebody wants to invest in it, because of what it is. They're just a passive third-party
right
stuff.
So are you partnering, or are you engaging with these nonprofits in discussion and sort of, if you will, if the word is appropriate, partnering from the early stages, or is this something that you later then engage in?
The ideal is up front. As a matter of fact, if there's a church that has excess land and it happens to have dual zoning, institutional and residential, we're talking to a couple of them right now, and basically we'd enter into a turnkey agreement. We show them everything that's going to happen, the lines and everything. They sign off in it. They go away. We do our thing and give them a report once a month. And then when we've stabilized it, and we turn it over, and about a year after that, when the bugs are worked out, and then we walk from it,
Yeah.
So,
Ian, again, I'm almost asking you like for a shopping list of stuff, because I have a couple of things in mind right now already of one, and I'm asking these questions kind of from the perspective of there may be a few people that I could maybe send your way to talk about this. I could find it interesting as well on their side. What about things like transportation, proximity to access services, things of that nature, hospitals, major? I mean, are you looking at those as part of your decision making too?
Well, that's by far the preference. I mean, the walkability score would be great if it's between 90 and 95.
Yeah.
If it's not, we'll be providing the parking that the zoning requires, etc. You know, zip car or whatever it takes. You know, trying to stay away from heavy expense things like a 12-seater bus that a seniors home would require. You know, but the boomers don't. You know, as a rule. So yeah, you know, I mean, it's better if it's within the urban boundary, not, you know, out in the field, you know, just beyond the urban boundary. So this is all the boxes we look to check, you know, and the nearer a hospital, the better, or at least the doctors slash clinics, etc.
The other thing that you guys might be bringing to the table as well is that if there's been, this is a big push from a lot of places, is this sort of mixed use and walkability, sort of that sort of reinvigoration of sort of a Main Street USA, if you will, idea. You said that, you know, walkability scores, high scores of walkability, 95 or so, would be ideal. I have seen situations, not necessarily with this kind of development, but with sort of urban revitalization retail, like adaptive reuse, where the walkability was a byproduct of a development. And I would not be surprised if you guys are going about this, that if it's a city that is, for example, really keen on having more of a walkability, more of a pedestrian kind of friendly vibe, that you could be a catalyst project to make that happen within their overall, sorry?
That's what we're talking to the city of Myrtle Beach on, exactly that, for the downtown core there, to get away from hospitality, not to get away from hospitality, but
well, it's still hospitality. What you're proposing is, in my mind, and I keep reminding people that the origin of the word hospitality comes from the Hospitaller Knights, right? That basically protected the pilgrims to the Holy Land. So hospitality is from the Hospitallers, and so you are actually closer to the origin in what you're proposing, because there's a care component and a sort of a protective of a vulnerable population component by providing this thing, including the fact that it's benefiting the nonprofit. So yes, hospitality comes from Hospitallers. Along the way, with the glitzy, you know, vases on the counters, we may have forgotten a little bit of that heritage, but it's very much alive and well when you start mixing these, and you know, the layer of wellness and preventive medicine and sort of all that programming that can now be basically offered through a property like yours.
Oh, and by the way, each project will have, you know, if it's a 3-story building, it'll be 3.5, and the piece that isn't built will be a roof terrace with planters, you know, for whatever vegetables and that, and a rooftop cinema, you know, which can depend on climate, etc. But you know, it's all of these sorts of things, and the cinema obviously is tied into the internet for, you know, classes as well as movies.
Oh yeah, you know, I mean, I don't know if you saw, I shared a posting on LinkedIn last week where the restaurants have basically turned their parking lots in some cases to the old, a very small footprint version of the old drive-in movie theaters, where they basically were projecting movies on the walls on the outside, since they can't seat people inside, and everybody in their parking lot was in their cars. And this day and age, I mean, you could just do everything on Bluetooth, so you don't even need to have the big
That's right.
speakers that sit on your window.
That you used to drive away with.
Right, which you drove away with, right? This is somebody's houses that's got some of them in there. The other thing is, it's a restaurant that's trying to stay in operation for delivery, right? So you literally get delivery to the parking lot, and then you sit there and watch a movie. I mean, having a roof deck that allows you to do that, I'll tell you, if those buildings were there today, and you had seniors that were sequestering because of COVID, there's a lot more quality of life still going on in that building, even under a crisis. So yeah,
for $1,300 a month, they get you know, 15 by 20. They get a 4-piece bathroom. They get a mini fridge, a microwave, a TV, and the furnishings. You know, and you know, and a double bed, etc. So that's they get all of that, as well as the large living room, dining room, if they want to congregate in that unit.
Right.
Each unit's about 16 or 1800 square feet.
Yeah, throw in some programming that is not trying to make everybody basically work on a puzzle. I mean, I remember before the COVID, I went and visited a adult daycare that is run by Senior Serve, which is now Meals on Wheels Orange County, that are friends of mine, and they were excited about the fact that they had initiated a boxing program. There was a boxing. There was a boxing bag. There was a boxing bag, and
Oh, good.
no, they weren't boxing each other. Right? It wasn't a ring format, but there was a punching bag, and they couldn't. They were so excited that the people that were there, and they ranged in age. And one gentleman was a little bit on the younger side, but he had some difficulties. When I started talking to him, I found out that he was actually a ranked boxer, amateur boxer in Syria for a while. And there was this other gentleman, and in one case there was a lady who was sitting even in the chair, and she was taking the hits on the back. They were all so excited. They were like kids with a new toy. And so up till that point, I didn't even think, well, myopically, I'm like, senior, why would a senior be boxing, right? I came out of there, Ian, and I have a gentleman who actually has a very popular boxing circuit boxing gym. It's almost like spin cycles. It's the same thing, but with boxing bags. Okay. And they are probably within a 30-mile distance of each other. And this guy is very much also very, very community conscious, very, very socially responsibility kind of conscious, very involved, philanthropical, and I connected the two of them together. And he was a for-profit and a non-profit that was servicing seniors, and basically there was a win-win synergy for everybody to provide this kind of alternative offering for a population of people that,
No, that's what I prefer, a win-win, but we've added another win into our mix. These buildings will be built what's called passive house standards, and there's only about 2,000 passive house designed projects in the US.
What is passive house?
It's an energy efficiency. Everybody's heard the LEED, but this is LEED on steroids, and there's over 50,000 of these buildings in Europe that have been in existence for over 30 years. It reduces the energy by 80 to 90% that a building consumes. So these buildings will also reduce the carbon footprint, and we've absorbed that cost into the cost of what we're talking about.
Is it just how it is constructed, the material and the design?
Triple glazed windows, better air changes. Matter of fact, with the HEPA filters, it gets rid of all the pathogens. Well, most of them. So it's all of that whole how it's built, healthy building.
So just as we're concluding this, so that is also a part of what factoring into your decisions and your reality. I would think even more acutely now after the COVID, right? There's sort of the built environment has to meet certain maybe higher than what we used to consider as acceptable. Those minimums, we have to go higher than the minimums now.
Yep.
In our built environments, right?
Yeah, and as a developer that's done a lot of this, we can absorb what you've described and just make changes in other areas that might have been more cosmetic.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is it will satisfy the questions that are going to come up from potential residents or their kids, about their parents living in these places.
Well, because I would think that you're still asking whether it's $1,300 a month or $5,000 a month. When it comes to health and quality, and you and I talked about this before we got on the air together here live, is that you're spending a lot of time indoors, so your environment that you're spending time in has to be at the very least reassuring to you that it's safe, that it's as safe as could be, right. Especially if. I mean, you imagine like you've been sequestered at home for the last 60 days, but the quality of the air quality in your home is actually subpar. You got to ask yourself which is worse, that I'm basically inside an environment that doesn't have those or is built to the minimums, Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, this has been a real challenge to all of us, and I don't think anybody on the planet, unless you were too young to really remember, will ever forget that we were communally all, sequestered for 60 days or so.
When
Well,
Kennedy was shot.
yeah, it's exactly, and even more so, I think, than 9/11, because it is a global phenomenon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you could be sitting in Malaysia in a little coffee shop tomorrow, or a year from now, or 2 years from now, and somebody is sitting at a table next to you, and you strike a conversation with them with simply saying, "So, what was it like for you during COVID?" You don't know the person from Adam, but you have a common thread, a common shared experience with almost everybody on the planet right now.
Yeah.
Ian, yeah, go ahead, finish.
I was just going to say in closing, if you are,
Yeah.
you may not be a boomer, but your sign behind you is straight out of my living room wall in 1965. So.
And that has been, well, I used to say that I was born 10 years too late. Okay. The things that appeal to me, the things that, and a lot of time, a lot of my friends, well, most of my life have been older, and I grew up on my dad's LP records and the history books and the biographies and World War II and Zane Grey and Tom Nix and Louis L'Amour and Frankie Lane, and the list goes on. And when you start mixing all of that Western paraphernalia, and you say that I was exposed to it in Kuwait, so you take that to the next level, right? I was listening to Ring of Fire when I was in high school in Kuwait, right? I appreciate you pointing that out, because I have been asked multiple times to change the logo of my show, and I was like, I am not changing the logo of my show. That is my logo from 5 years ago.
Not if you're aiming at boomers.
Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate taking the time, Ian.
You're welcome.
I look forward to continuing our building this relationship, and I'm sure we will be having a lot more conversations than this one only.
Yeah, we won't give up.
Thank you, Ian. You take care. Be safe, my friend.
Thanks, man. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.